can turn just about any vocal sample into a beautiful, ambient, playable instrument, playable pad, for instance. There's just a couple things you have to get right to pull it off. I'm going to show you exactly what that means, and by the end of this video, you're going to understand how to make beautiful sound design from really any vocal sample you can find. Okay, so here we have a vocal sample.
I can't help it, I just might let it turn into a weekend loving you.
Now you can pull this from really anywhere, but I like to pick a segment that I like. In particular, I kind of go for something like this. Because it's like a vocalization or a moment of sustain, which you can create really cool instrument sounds from. If I go up to instruments and then simpler, we can pull this in, and I can pull this segment right from it and drop it into simpler here. So it automatically picks it within simpler, and you can make simpler bigger. And then all you have to do is create a loop from this particular segment. So you're going to turn loop on, fade all the way up, and then pull loop down. And it helps to not be in warp mode to do this. So this way we can just quickly create a loop out of that segment of time. You can kind of test it by just seeing if you like the way it sounds when it loops. So here I'm holding down a key to make sure I like how it sounds. And that's a great place to be. This is kind of the first step that you want to get right. So you figure out where you want to loop from. Now where this gets really interesting is that we're going to stack and layer this with something that's playable, like a pad sound. So we can adjust the attack, decay, and sustain and release to reflect that. And so you can see these values have changed a little bit to reflect that. And it's basically something that's kind of akin to a pad sound. So the sound sort of drifts in. I'm also going to limit the voices to just 4 because if I layer this into a pad type setup, I don't want to have too many voices happening if I decide to play a bigger chord. Another thing you can do is conform this to just trigger it from the original sound. So a big problem with sampling is that, you might change the pitch to something that doesn't work with the key you're trying to play in. It's hard to describe, but basically things start to go awry when you're trying to play this and make it an instrument. So what I do is I conform it to one set note, and I do this with a MIDI effect. So if you go to MIDI effects and then you go to scale, I'm going to drag and drop this before, and this grid always confuses the crap out of people. I mean, it certainly did for me anyway, but the really easy way to think about it is that these are lanes that you can decide to conform a note to. Obviously, you have presets for scales. That's kind of the whole point of this thing. But in this case, what I want to do is no matter what note I play, which is, the vertical axis there, I want it to always be one note. So I'm always triggering the sample as one note, which in this case is the original B. And so if I just make this line all the way across, now it's going to always trigger B. If I play a C, it's going to make it B. If I play a C sharp, it's going to make it a B. If I play it, get the idea. So it will always be B. So you can see I can play in the mid-range of the keyboard, and it will always be that sample. If I play a bit higher, I get the octaves. But everything just conforms to either the sample in its original pitch or an octave higher or lower. Why am I doing this? I want to layer this with an instrumentation. So this is going to allow me to create this pad effect. If I shift click and hit Control G, I've now put it into a instrument rack. Now the really cool thing is that once it's in an instrument rack, you can stack it with other pads. So if I have like a really cool pad preset with Ableton Drift, for instance, you just drag and drop it right into there. So here's the Drift preset Slow Stone, and I'll just pull up my keyboard and we're gonna hear it mixed in with the vocal sample. So you get this beautiful, warm, deep, rich sound with the vocal sample, again, always triggering at the original pitch or an octave higher or lower, depending on what you play, which is really cool. So you're mixing in that vocal sound with the pad, and it gives you a really cool ambient effect. And then you can basically, kind of the trick with this, is that once they're in the instrument rack together, you want to place a reverb after the instrument rack. So outside of the two lanes of the instrument rack, so they're both going to the same reverb. And that's going to really glue the sound of them together, especially for a pad, but really for any sound. It doesn't have to be 100% wet. I just set it there for this video. But, you know, it could be somewhere around there. But with a pad, you can kind of get away with it being 100% wet, right? So you just get a really cool mixed sound with that vocal sound. So yeah, I really just love this technique because you're not really punished for trying to use a vocal sample and make it into a pad. You don't have to layer it with a synthesizer, but it's a really fast, easy way to do it. Slowstone is like one of my go-to warm Ableton drift presets for like a pad. So let's say you're working with an artist, you can take one of their vocal stems and just in a minute basically stack it into a vocal pad really, really easily. I'm going to link up in the top left corner of this video right now a video on doing this with oohs and ahs. You can do this with your own voice, by the way, which is really cool. And if you're into these things, like you want to get the most out of Ableton, highly recommend checking out the link in the description down below. If you're watching on YouTube, we're doing a massive update to the Ableton Drift preset library. I've been basically working on this library for well over a year now, and we're adding some big updates to it. So check that out in the link in the description down below. Special shout out to our amazing Patreon Pro members. Thank you guys so much. See you in the next video. Have fun making music.